we have our first keynote. Matej Pfajfar is the CTO of Monzo, the UK's largest digital bank with more than 8 million customers. Very, very hard to miss some of its cards from members in our teams, probably. Those what do you call that color? I don't know. Coral, that's right, thank you, in the front. But before joining Monzo, Matej was engineering director at Google from 2018, where he focused on enabling machine learning on Android devices and expanding Android's protected computing capabilities. He's also led engineering data sciences teams responsible for Android's telemetry and diagnostics. And prior to that, he was the executive director of Adacta, where he led the development of the top-rated core systems for insurance. Matej, if that wasn't prolific enough, also has a computer science degree from the University of Cambridge. So I'm very, very excited to hear what he's going to say about innovating at pace with simpler decision-making. So I'd like you to put your hands together, big loud clap, and welcome to the stage, Matej.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to CTO Craft Con. It's very good to be here with you today. Also, a warm welcome to Pete, as we saw. My name's Matej. I am a software engineer. I'm also a CTO. I have the pleasure of serving an amazing team as the CTO of Monzo. Now, the talk today is about getting things done with simpler decision-making. We need to set some expectations. Usually, when you go to talks like this, you will expect to hear from smart, amazing people who have figured out a solution to a gnarly problem. This is not that type of talk. Instead, I hope to share some of my journey and some of my learnings on the topic. But really, what I hope will happen is I get to talk to many of you during the break, and you tell me about the very smart ways in which you're approaching the challenge. To set the scene, let me tell you about Monzo. Monzo is the bank that lives on your phone. Our mission is to make money work for everyone, and our plan is to bring all of your financial life together in one place and help you make better decisions to build financial momentum, to enable your life goals and general well-being. And when Monzo was founded in 2015, it set out to do something differently, to change the look and feel of a bank. Also to change your relationship with your money and your relationship with your bank. And, fast forward also many years, and Monzo is now the UK's largest digital bank. We have the pleasure of serving over 9 million customers, 2 million of which joined in last year alone. So as the CTO, I often get asked, for example, when I interview people, what are the top things on your mind in general? And in general, it's 3 things. One is keeping the bank running. We're a high technology company. We built our own tech stack end to end from the ground up. We're extremely fast-paced. On any given day, including today, we will make in excess of 200, 250 deployments to production. 2 is keeping the bank secure. The landscape of cybersecurity threats, fraudsters, etc., is ever-changing, ever-evolving, and we have to make sure that we can maintain our advanced security posture so that we can protect our customers and ourselves. And 3 is keeping up the pace. Why is that important? Well, at Monzo, like many companies represented here, we are trying to change the world in a way. And companies like ours, we bring together talented people. We unite them behind a purpose and a mission. We have shared values. We have a North Star strategy that guides our execution. And all of that is absolutely crucial, extremely important. And then there's also just getting stuff done. And a lot of times, it's actually doing the wrong things. And sometimes it's doing the right things in the wrong way. But that's okay. What's important is that you get on with it, you measure, you course correct, and you do better moving forward. And it's the pace and the quality of those decisions that ultimately guide our velocity as a company and also our ability to deliver great outcomes to our customers. Let me give you an example. So at Monzo, we don't offer mortgages. We don't underwrite mortgages on our balance sheet. But about a year ago, we were the first bank in the UK who started using third-party data to let you see your mortgage in our app. And we show you things like balance, loan-to-value ratio. We tell you about the equity that you've built. We offer useful tools. Now, to build this feature, actually, before we built it, we conducted something like 50 in-depth customer interviews. And those customers told us about why and how this is an unmet need and why this is a feature that we should build. And then we built it. And after we built the first version, I actually went and checked. We received something like 10,000 pieces of feedback from our customers. Right? So every one of those pieces of feedback, you need to follow up on it. You need to make a call on it. You need to pick a solution. You need to prioritize it. Now, all of those are decisions. So if you look at it from this point of view, this feature was built with us having made in excess of 10,000 decisions, probably a multiple of that. And you just can't do this if your teams are not set up to make decisions at pace. Now, of course, Monzo is a bottom-up company. In fact, every company I've worked at in my career was a bottom-up company. And what does that mean? Well, that means that we like our teams cross-functional and diverse. We like our teams highly empowered and autonomous. We like our teams very self-organizing and outcome-driven. These are all amazing things. So what else is there to say on the topic? Well, as companies grow, interesting things start to happen. And the best and also the funniest explanation I've seen on this to date is by a former colleague of mine at Google, Alex Komorowski, who wrote this great piece on coordination headwinds. If you haven't read it, Google it and have a look. Highly recommend it. The gist of it, as I understand it, sorry, Alex, is the following. If you look at the probability of a company's success, that's the term on the left-hand side, left with the equal sign. You can think about it being composed of three contributing factors. On the left-hand side is the probability of success that's driven by the people that you hire and the skills that they have. So it's hiring the right talented people with the right skill set for the challenge that you're tackling. And this is the term that dominates in small companies. And then as companies grow in size and as the complexity of the challenge increases, the other two terms come into play rather more prominently. The middle term is essentially the cost of coordination. So in order to succeed, you need to deploy the right people with the right skill set to the right project at the right time. And the more people you have, the more complex the projects, the harder that is, right? So the probability of success starts going down with complexity. And the third term is the organization headwind. And that's essentially the cost of navigating the ever more complex org structure that you have and escalations and decision-making and all of that. And those two terms then start to dominate and slow things down. And that's actually how you see it happening. What happens is that things start to feel slow. We spend more time discussing and aligning. It takes us longer to make decisions, which means it takes us longer to deliver the outcomes that we want to deliver to our customers. And ever so gradually, you may also see this slight shift towards less ambitious goals, because teams will start to prioritize level of confidence over ambition. And perhaps you may even see some local optimizations happening. Those decisions that make sense at a team level, and then you may take 3 steps back and look at it across the company, they may not be the best prioritization calls at all. Also, there's less positive energy in the company than there used to be. Now, does any of that sound at all familiar? Yes, I see some people nodding. Okay, that's a good sign. Thank you for that. Well, what can I say? I can say congratulations. That means you're successful, probably. It means you're growing in size and complexity, so you must be doing well. Good on you. But what we all must remember is that what got us here won't get us there. So if we don't continue to raise the bar across the company, and this includes the pace and the quality of decision making, we will just not be the company that we aspire to be. And these changes I described, they don't happen suddenly. They happen slowly over time. And maybe we can draw some parallels from software engineering. At Monzo, we have this set of engineering principles, and one of them says that we do not tolerate anomalous system behavior. In other words, as a team, we commit to investigating and resolving broken windows as they occur. And broken windows are those definitely not urgent, small things that pop up from time to time. For example, you may get the occasional sluggishness when you scroll down on a particular screen in the app. Nothing critical. But if not addressed over time, those broken windows will severely degrade the customer experience that you're able to deliver to your customers. So you can't ignore them. And same is true with ways of working. And whenever I've spoken to teams in many companies about this, a few themes or trends tend to emerge. One is, if not corrected, there is this perceived movement of decision-making authority upwards in the company. What people start saying is things like, I don't know if I can make that decision. That happens. Another thing that happens is this lack of confidence, fear of getting it wrong. So people start saying, not quite sure, we'll just wait. So we get more data and build more confidence. Or there's a lot more of us on this decision right now, and it's hard to reach consensus. So we spend a lot of time building consensus before we make a decision. So there's a general theme emerging here, which is about, okay, you need to make sure that people are empowered to make decisions. It's kind of obvious, right? Let's look at it from this point of view. We've gone and hired the best people in the market, right? Of course we trust them to make decisions. Of course we trust them and we want to empower them to make these judgment calls of any and all types. And of course we know that on occasion they will get things wrong. That's okay. Most of the time in our day-to-day decision making, our decisions are actually reversible. So just making a call, picking a direction, implementing it, and then course correcting later is on balance better than waiting to get a super high degree of confidence. And of course, it's useful. It's also necessary that we keep reminding ourselves and our teams that this is the case. I think there's another useful way of doing it, which is that instead of just calling it a power, also start calling it an expectation. Because it actually is an expectation. Everyone in the company needs to be making decisions all the time. For example, when engineers at Monzo write or review code, they make decisions about whether we underwrite or pay down technical debt. We trust them to make these calls. We expect them to make these calls. And if you're a manager or a leader of a team, it is actually your job description to make sure that everyone understands what decisions they're supposed to be making. And it is actually your job to make sure that everyone knows how to get help if for whatever reason they're on occasion not able to make those decisions. That is an expectation. Of course, none of this is always super simple. And remember, with coordination headwinds, you can't actually remove them, right? Remember, they're a consequence of your success. But my teams and I have found that there are some things that help more often than they don't. Now let's talk about those. One is getting clarity or being clear with everyone involved on how you actually make decisions. I spoke about Monzo being a bottom-up company. And again, that means we have highly diverse cross-functional teams. Why? Because highly diverse cross-functional teams deliver better outcomes. Simple. We like our teams highly empowered and autonomous, which means that we don't prescribe these company-wide ways of working and how everyone should be making decisions. we ask the teams to self-organize. If you're a cross-functional team or a group of leads, the way you make decisions kind of depends on the decision, right? Sometimes you want to go for consensus. Sometimes you just appoint one member of the group to go ahead and make the call. And there's, about 50,000 options in between, and all of them get used depending on the decision. And if it is not trivially clear to everyone involved how a decision is going to get made, why don't you just write it down? They're called decision-making templates. They take, they take minutes of time. They're nice and short, easy to read, easy to understand. Many frameworks exist for this. At Monzo, I've seen teams increasingly using RAPID, which is recommend, agree, perform, input, and decide. So just write that down for a decision, and it's going to be super clear to everyone how a decision is going to get made. No fuss at all. We found that super useful. The second thing, and that's maybe more for leaders, is being very deliberate about where in the company certain decisions get made. So, for example, as a leader, I've often been asked to make a call on something, and sometimes I then get the feedback from my team that, hey, you didn't have to make this decision. Why did it have to land with you? And, and admittedly, a lot of the times, I was a little bit defensive, and I thought, but wait, I didn't pull the decision up, right? I was asked to make a decision, and I made it because I thought it would be good for the team. And many times, that's exactly the case. If someone asks you for help, you should go and help them make a decision. But there's a nuance here. It's not just about not pulling decisions up. It's also about deliberately pushing them down. So whenever I make a decision where I think, hey, maybe I didn't have to make this call, I try and find out what happened. Maybe it's a case of needing to just say, hey, you're empowered and I trust you to make this decision. Sometimes you need to say, hey, I expect you to make this decision. And sometimes it's just a set of circumstances and it's useful to go and debug what happened. So maybe we can tweak things for next time it happens so the decisions can get made by people that couldn't make it this time. The trick here is that if you don't do that, then people around you tend to assume that it's your expectation to be making these kinds of decisions moving forward. And then as a consequence, decisions just get pulled up and concentrated, and that always slow things down. I talk a lot about decisions, but then there's also a case of when do you prefer something else over decisions, like principles. The entire theme of this talk is about pace of decision-making, and pace of decision-making is usually something about enabling others. And a simple way of doing this is whenever you make a decision, you share your rationale very transparently. The more you do this, the more the people around you are going to be able to understand and anticipate your decisions, and eventually, you will no longer have to make them. And it's not always possible, or it's always possible, but not always easy. Maybe you should consider writing down principles for how a certain decision should be made. An example from Monzo is, I mentioned our engineering principles. They were written years ago by our best and most senior engineers, precisely with the intent of enabling every engineer at Monzo to make decisions on a daily basis. Do I introduce a new technology into the stack? How much do I optimize a particular piece of code? Our principles help engineers make these decisions. So the more you lean into being transparent about your rationale and the more you codify this in principles, the more you're going to enable people around you to actually go ahead and make those decisions themselves. So decision-making templates, being deliberate about pushing decisions down, and preferring principles over decisions. Those will all help with the pace of decisions. It's not just about the pace, though. It's also about the quality. And what sometimes happens as companies grow, you get, let's call them local optimizations. Decisions that actually aren't quite right at the company level. And when that happens, I always like to go back to the old football analogy. What is the goalkeeper's job at football? Is it to prevent goals being scored? No, it's not actually. The goalkeeper's job is exactly the same as everybody else's, which is for the team to win. And in companies, everybody's job is for the company to win, whatever that definition of winning is for the company or for you. The way we do this at Monzo, we have codified it in the very clear principle, which is that Monzo and customer are more important than collectives, and that is more important than squads. Squads at Monzo are teams, and collectives are a group of teams, for example, working in the same business area. Why do we have this principle? So we don't optimize locally. Increasing headcount, maintaining scope, keeping projects going, yeah, these are not the right goals. And we don't want people optimizing for those. So we value and reward behaviors that optimize for the company and our customers. In practice, this means that we stack rank every cycle we do. We look at everything we're doing across the company, and we stack rank things, and we ask ourselves, is that the best prioritization list that will allow us to deliver the best outcomes for our customers? And routinely, the answer is no, and we make changes. And routinely, we start, pause, and stop initiatives at the beginning of every cycle. And routinely, we ask teams to redeploy to a different challenge, because on balance, that will help us deliver better outcomes for the customers quicker. So talented teams should be deployed against the most important problems that you have. Now, this speaks about, I guess, the what. What do you actually do? But you can't have the what without also thinking about the how. And another very common question when I interview people for jobs at Monzo is, well, what does working at Monzo feel like? And what I often say is, you know what? We disagree and we challenge ourselves a fair bit. And I think that's great. And it gives me and everyone a lot of energy, because on balance, that gets us to make better decisions. Let's talk about disagreement for a minute, right? So in general, I think it's a mistake to treat disagreement as something negative. Remember, no one in the company will have all the information about everything in the company. So everyone's operating with a partial set of information. And you would think that when two people come together, if they have the same information, exactly the same, if they optimize in the same way for company and customer outcomes, they will be naturally in agreement. So disagreement arises predominantly because people come together that don't have the exact same set of information. They may be partially overlapping, but different. The corollary of this is that if someone disagrees with me, I don't get annoyed or mad. I get curious, because by definition, I will learn something new. And after you've done this, and if it's still not clear what the best course of action is, that's all right. That's why we have collaborative escalations. Again, not a negative thing at all. A collaborative escalation is a tool that allows people who are unable to decide collectively on the best course of action to present the options considered to a leader and just ask them to make a call. It's very simple. So optimizing for the customer above all else and collaborating in the right way will lead to better and faster decisions over time. And we're still very much on a journey, and every day we try and do things slightly differently, and we're trying to improve things. And sometimes it works out really, really beautifully. Let me give you an example. So last year, we introduced this feature called Status. I'll tell you exactly what it does in a minute. But it's essentially to tackle a massive issue impacting millions of people in the UK, and it's fraud, right? I'm pretty sure at least some of you have received a call from someone who's pretending to be someone you trust, like your bank, and they try and get you to send some money somewhere. right? And I think, well, in fact, like something like 45,000 cases of impersonation fraud were reported in the UK last year. So we ran a company hackathon, and what was built there was not quite this, but something in the area of giving customers more visibility and transparency on when we would be contacting them. And the team saw the hackathon feature, and they got their optimized for customer thing on, and they decided that actually this was the most important thing they could be delivering. So they deprioritized a lot of very other important work and put this at the top of the list. Yeah, the team did that themselves. And that still wasn't enough. They needed more help, so they went to adjacent teams in the orgs, and they said, hey, we think this is the best thing we can deliver for the company, but we need to do it super quickly because it's important. And those teams, in turn, deprioritized some of their important work and deployed their talented engineers and product managers and data scientists to this. And as a result, 3 months later, we shipped call status. And it essentially allows customers to see in the app if Monzo is on the phone to them. And if someone's on the phone to them pretending to be Monzo, but not us, they have the ability to report it through the app. Landed with great reception. It's a much-loved feature. We hope that other banks will follow suit. And we've already seen this preventing something amounting to thousands of fraud cases per year. So why is this a great example? This is a great example because the decision to build and prioritize this over other work was made by the team. No fuss at all. And when they needed help, they got help from other teams. Again, no fuss at all. It's because everyone felt confident in making these types of decisions, and they were prioritizing and optimizing for the right outcomes. And then teams went together and just went and built it. And lots of things make me very proud to be working at Monzo. And I love working at Monzo for oh so many reasons. Things like this, definitely an example of that. Now, before I leave the stage, I would like to say, if you're thinking at all about how you and your teams make decisions, please remember there's a lot of us that are very curious as to what you figured out. So if you have tips and tricks, please do share. Here during the break, or maybe do one of these talks next time. Trust me, we want to hear. But thank you very much for being here today. It's my pleasure. Enjoy the rest of the event, and I'll stick around, and I look forward to meeting many of you during the break. Thank you.